You have something?
Gosh.
Let's talk about this. Come on. I don't know. I've been dragging our feet on this article. Post the link. I know you're excited. I'm excited. You and I are both big DC fans.
Well, we have been talking for the longest time about what is going on with the Gunverse. What is the new canon going to be to this? How much of the old Snyderverse is going to carry over? Any of it? None of it? We know some of it is because he's keeping Peacemaker around. So, you know.
I'm going to read, and then we can comment. James Gunn clarifies how the DC Universe will deal with the various DC Expanded Universe plot points in DC Studios' major reboot. While the DC Universe Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, slate will, for the most part, act as a fresh launch for a new franchise, a few elements from the DCEU will be carried over into the reboot. A key example is Peacemaker Season 2, which features John Cena and multiple cast members from the Max TV show back, but as part of the DC Universe this time round. At this year's New York Comic-Con, with Screen Rant in attendance, Gunn and the Creature Commandos cast were present to promote the beginning of the new DC Universe. During the panel, Gunn addressed how the upcoming DC Universe franchise will deal with the canonical DCEU events and the fresh continuity, sharing the following. We learned that other things have happened in the past and other media have still happened. There are references to things that happened in the past, and those references then become canon in the DCU because we mention them. So, for instance, maybe they'll mention someone's neck getting snapped in Metropolis or something like that by Superman. Is that what he's talking about? Maybe not specifically.
Possibly.
Is he picking and choosing what's going to be referenced, and can we assume the other stuff didn't happen?
If you want me to put a fine point on what I think he's saying, he's going, I'm making it up as we go along.
Then just start fresh. Here's the deal. In the Justice League movie, there's a line where Bruce Wayne, like Alfred says, "Oh, this is a much bigger deal than you dealing with exploding penguins," or something like that. And I'm like, you could take that as a reference to Batman Returns, or maybe something similar happened in this universe. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And it's a reference, but it's not. But what James Gunn's DCU canon comments mean for future DC releases, given that the DCEU was a very polarizing continuity, it doesn't feel like a lot from the now concluded universe will play major factors in the DC universe. That said, someone like Viola Davis, Amanda Waller in her Waller spinoff series will likely maintain most, if not all, of her DCEU history, as she was one of the characters who worked the best in that world. Gunn's DC Universe is considered something of a clean slate, suggesting connections to prior DCU events won't be made extensive and will likely be made clear earlier on, so the new continuity can then build a fresh path forward. How is it a fresh path forward if it's repeating past events?
and I think it also falls down to and we've made this comment about previous things that Gunn has said. We think we know what he means, but if that's what he means, he is communicating it very, very, very badly. My thought is, and I've always thought this is the way it should be. You don't have to reboot. You just go ahead and reboot, and you can make reference to things that happened previously if they happen to every Superman, right? If Superman's parents die, and, he's adopted by the Kents, and then they die, and, there's all these things that are true always about Superman, right? So if he makes a reference to that, he could be referring to, the events of Man of Steel, or the Richard Donner Superman, or the comic books. Doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's the same that they basically did with the Tom Holland Spider-Man. If you want to believe that he's the continuation of Tobey Maguire, or any other Spider-Man that you watch, that's fine. We're not going back and doing his origin story again. You already know that. We're kind of going on from here. But the specific details of this adventure with Darkseid and that and the other, maybe we just ignore all that, right? And you don't know until, the next time Darkseid shows up, and it's the first time Superman's meeting him. Well, I guess that means that Man of Steel and all that story didn't happen, right?
It's this sort of thing that drives me nuts, though, because I'm wondering, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, does Uncle Ben exist in that universe? I've never heard him mentioned once. Maybe he did exist, and maybe he was married to Aunt May, and he died tragically, like in the comics and the Tobey Maguire and Garfield movies. But we don't know because he's not mentioned.
I would argue that
singled. They don't. I mean,
but that's like
never
saying.
Mention him.
But that's like saying we got this new corn sweat Superman. We don't even know if he's Kryptonian or not because they're not showing him coming from Krypton. Look, there's certain things you have to assume happened, whether they mention it or not.
All right.
You know?
Okay, so, for example, it has already been established, clarified, none of the Justice League actors from the DCU timeline went back for the DC Universe. However, outside of David Cornsweat's Superman film and the direction for the Brave and the Bold story, whether or not their DC Universe counterparts have history similar to those of previous universes remain to be seen. This would actually be a good point in time where you kind of start getting your actors out and try hyping this movie. It comes out this summer.
Yeah.
Waiting for the new year, maybe. Because I have to tell you,
actually, this is gonna. I think this is gonna be what I'm about to say. I don't think many people are gonna agree with me, but if you think about it, I think it's got some merit. You have to first have Gunn knowing the answer to these questions. He's got to know what is and is not canon. He's got to talk it through with the actors of these characters, and he's got to tell them, okay, Corn Sweat. All this stuff that you saw in the other guys, only this, and this applies to you. The rest didn't happen, okay? Here, read this comic, because I'm going to consider that to be canon. And maybe mention a few other things, so that then when Cornsweat goes out and starts answering questions at conventions, he could do the whole, I'm not supposed to talk about that, and then accidentally slip something and say, I wasn't supposed to say it. I think I'm going to get in trouble. This is a great way to build fan interest that tells everybody they know what's canon. They know their own characters.
Maybe.
That would be great marketing, but they're not that intelligent.
They need to get the hype train going now, especially after Joker, fillet of Dookie or whatever it was called.
I guess.
I'm going to say something else too. What I thought, I just dawned on me now. I don't know. I had a friend in college many years back who were talking about what the Dark Knight Rises was going to be, and they said they saw like a leaked script online or something. It was going to be about a trial for the Joker. And it was going to have Harley Quinn in it as well. And then I'm thinking this Joker 2 was a trial for Arthur Fleck, who was the Joker, I guess, in that movie, and Harley Quinn is in it. And sometimes I wonder if some of these grand ideas we're dealing with are just recycles. Like this Brave and the Bold movie, I knew they were planning to do a Ben Affleck Batman movie, which I think would have featured Deathstroke as the villain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think I heard that maybe he might be and I think even though they didn't say he's going to be the villain in this Brave and the Bold, it wouldn't shock me if Deathstroke is going to be the villain in this Batman movie they're making for the Gunverse, because I think they're tied up and they can't use any Batman villains because of this other the patents in Batman movies, right? So I don't know.
I can't speak with any specificity, but I can speak in general terms about these things, because the fact is that. Yes, when they own a script, whether they use it or not, they own the script, and they will mine it for resources later on. The problem is that where that idea originally came from might have been a really, really good idea, but what they ended up doing with it really, really sucks, right? Because in the Nolan Batman, if they had gone with that idea, we already know who the Joker is. We already know what he's going on trial for. And then they bring in this minor character as a witness, right? Possibly for the prosecution, but possibly for the defense. His institutional psychiatrist,
Right.
Harleen Quinzel.
It would have made sense, yeah.
That would have been a great way to introduce someone who may in the future become Harley Quinn.
And they couldn't do it because Heath Ledger died, so they didn't. He didn't know how.
Well, there was that. Plus, there was also Nolan not wanting to play ball with a greater universe, which again, I'm like, look, these are our characters. If you don't like what we're doing with these characters, screw you and walk away.
I agree with you, but let's be honest here. Dark Knight trilogy was done. Plenty of time for DC to have set up a proper new universe, and that's when we got Man of Steel and everything crumbled from there on out.
Yeah, you're right.
The MCU Spider-Man talked about his Uncle Ben when Tony Stark came to. Okay, I must have missed that comment. I'll rewatch it at some point. I must have missed it. My mistake. I'd be surprised if Gunn would care enough to do that. Well, I am going to say something in defense of Gunn here. He's been given no time to set this thing up.
Right.
They had to get this. You got to get this done in 2 years. Get this first Superman movie off the ground. Plus, they're making him shove all these other characters into it because I think he originally was just going to do. Let's start out small, do a Superman movie, kind of like how Marvel just did an Iron Man movie, right?
Yeah.
And a Hulk movie, and they started with those and see how they came off, and then they would build from there. And I thought that's what they were trying to do with this. And now, of course, they're having this. They're already starting with having TV series that are canonical with this stuff already, and it's just I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree, but I mean, and maybe I'm not 100% clear on what you're getting at, Darth Plato, but just the idea that Gunn wouldn't care enough to do that, to do anything. He better damn well care, because this is all on his shoulders.
He is. And I know Midnight Edge, they were saying that he must be sweating right now after this Joker movie.
Well, there's another big problem here that I'm going to say is kind of not his fault. He's probably getting a lot of limitations put on him by Warner Brothers, and it's very difficult to do stuff when you have that much oversight. And you don't have the freedom to do it. But at the same time, there's some things you should not have the freedom to do. It's about time for them to start cracking the whip and saying, look, we need to get back to whatever the iconic fan-loved elements of these characters are. You make this what the fans want or get the hell out.
Wait, the Crypto pick doesn't inspire... Is Crypto going to be in this movie? Has that leaked?
So, I don't know the details. I think our chat might actually...
Don't get me wrong.
In this regard, I think the chat probably knows more than I do. I do know that there were some leaks regarding Crypto. I don't know if that was in the form of something going out saying, hey, we're looking for a dog to play Crypto. But I don't know that they actually chose a dog. Okay. If there's actually been stills that have said this is what Crypto's going to look like, this is what his role is, I'd be interested to know that. But yeah,
it's I really don't know. We're putting Crypto in a movie. Crypto would get exposed to red kryptonite, and Superman would have to shoot him with a kryptonite gun and kill his dog. Gosh. In front of the kids, it's like in front of children in the movie who are crying because he shot the dog. Right? I'm just kidding.
No, Jesse's not wrong. DC knocked it out of the park during the 90s. I've said there's a lot of things in that animated run that some of it was unique to those animated features that were then ultimately adopted into the comics. Actually, there's some things people don't realize that were done in the Richard Donner Superman that have now made it into the comics. Like Lois having a struggle to quit smoking and having a love for orange juice and other things that were just never existed except in the Donnerverse, and now it's made its way into the comics. Little things like that,
It's how we were going to have to pay for the movie with cryptocurrency. I don't believe that. And so, yikes.
Again, not a sponsored stream. I am not specifically endorsing any specific cryptocurrency, but might be something to look into, guys.
Or that he did Guardians. He's on record saying he thought Superman was boring. Yeah, I don't have a good feeling about this movie either, but No, I don't even want to say we'll wait and see at this point because we've been burned too many times in the past. I'm very skeptical.
I have been
of this
very
whole
remiss in not
Yes.
working on my own. I had started a long time ago wanting to do my own take on the DC universe and what I would do with a movie verse, and I've done a few videos about it, but nothing with any consistency. And I really wish I had more time to do that.
You're welcome, Face Fraggle. So Superman in Doomsday is a take on Shane. Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
I remember Shane.
Well, I also feel like the whole Superman Doomsday story was a story that you do at the end of a long run on Superman.
Like at
You've
least
gotta
a
love the
phase 2
character
or
first.
3.
You don't put it in your second or third movie. That's
stupid. Nobody liked Superman in that universe at that point.
I
So
know.
why is
And
everybody...
then suddenly he was the best thing since sliced bread
everyone's
because
upset
we
that
need
he
it
got
to be
killed.
that
I'm
way for
thinking
the story to
everyone
happen.
hated him. You know, it's like
You destroyed our city and killed so many of our friends.
yeah, you're a weird alien that Batman hates, and all of a sudden, oh, it's so sad that he died. Oh man.
Yeah, that's that's it exactly. In the Snyderverse, Batman and Lex Luthor would probably be the heroes that hated Superman, who was the villain.
That'd be an interesting Elseworlds, or maybe not. Maybe that'd be a
It already exists, but then they decided to make it mainline canon in the Snyderverse.
Wasn't there some comic where Lex Luthor gave Bruce Wayne some kryptonite and says, "Look, we of this class stay together"?
What it was it was in the mainline Byrne era story where the only kryptonite on Earth was the kryptonite that Lex Luthor took from Metallo and turned into a little signet ring, and that kryptonite gave him cancer, and he was dying. He had to do some cloning of himself in order to save his own life. But when Superman got a hold of that piece of kryptonite, he himself gave it to Bruce, and he said, "I've seen the wisdom of, there needs to be somebody that keeps any superpowered individual in line, and Bruce, there's no one else I trust more
than you." Well, that was
to have this just in case.
Yes.
And there have been a lot of great stories revolving around that, a lot of speculative future storylines. But it's very important that it was Superman himself who gave Bruce that piece of kryptonite and said, just in case, I want to know that there's somebody who can keep me in check.
All right. We could talk about this all night, and maybe this will be a Friday stream idea.